This program has been brought to you thanks to the generous contributions of our patrons on Patreon. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. And for more content like this, be sure to check out the Modern Alchemist channel on Patreon.
Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Let's take a look now at what the Kybalion has to say about polarization, and then at the end we're going to wrap it all together.
This is a sparring program, similar to the programmed reality of the Matrix.
It has the same basic rules like gravity. What you must learn is that these rules are no different than the rules of a computer system. Some of them can be bent. Others can be broken. Understand?
So some of you might be wondering, why the clip from the Matrix? Why the Morpheus speech there right before? Why not just dig right on into this text? Well, the reason for it is twofold. One, because it's cool, and I like that particular clip. And the second reason is because it's extremely pertinent to what I'm about to do to all of you, which is totally Morpheus. I'm about to tell you, actually not me, the Kybalion is about to tell you, and the three initiates are about to tell you, that this world has rules, and that some of these rules can be bent, and other rules can be broken. So buckle your seatbelts as we walk our way through this. Remember, this is just an introduction to this concept, so we're not going to go into the very deep waters, but like a good snorkeler, we'll go down and we'll recognize that there is a great depth below us and that we probably should be properly equipped before going down there. And of course, that equipping is us moving through the text. But in the meantime, I think it's important for us to take a gaze into the abyss and see where polarization leads us. 4. The principle of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. The Kybalion. So those are the rules as spoken by the Kybalion in their most simple form. Now let's take a look at what the three initiates do to expound on these simple principles and see what we can do with them thanks to their exposition. This principle embodies the truth that everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites, all of which were old Hermetic axioms. It explains the old paradoxes that have perplexed so many, which have been stated as follows. Thesis and antithesis are identical in nature, but different in degree. All right, let's just put on the brakes here for a minute, and let's just talk about what I just said. What is thesis and antithesis? And where does this concept come from? And what can be learned by this statement? This is one of the methods that I use, by the way, when going through these kind of texts. It's very enticing to want to just breeze through stuff that may not necessarily make sense with the overall hope that it'll all come together at the end. And I personally believe this is a byproduct of the kind of education methods that were taught in school. But within the realm of the esoteric, it's like following a person who's got a little hole in their pocket and they're dropping gems along the way, in addition to coins and whatever else happens to be in their pockets. But this is one of those gems that if we don't take just a minute here and talk about it, we're going to miss something quite extraordinary. We're going to miss an extraordinary connection that we can develop, which then ties us in further to the Akashic record and is an essential element of the Saturn key. All right, so the history or custody of the idea of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis goes some distance. And in my opinion, each person who has held custody of an aspect or identity or association with this idea, all of these people are alchemists in their own right, and that they are using concepts that they are familiar with, concepts that they most certainly were educated in, and then restating these concepts in a more modern way so that they could be utilized within the current environment, which is the beauty of what we're about to talk about. So this idea is often accredited to Hegel, a German philosopher. However, Frecht is, Johann Frecht was actually the one who began to develop it, and most certainly he was influenced by Immanuel Kant's work, which is a critique of pure reason. So within that work itself, the idea then is promulgated that of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Essentially, the thesis is that the universe is finite, that it has a start point and an end point, and it's contained, it's finite. The antithesis is quite the opposite. It is that the universe is timeless, there is no start point, there is no end point, the universe is infinite. And between these two, they join to become the synthesis. Now, those of you in the alchemy lab and those of you who've been with me long enough should start to feel a little bit of ring coming together here for you, because Immanuel Kant was an alchemist. The thesis could be restated as all the attributes associated with salt. The antithesis could be associated with all the elements associated with sulfur. And the synthesis can be associated with ourselves, Mercury. So we have the body, we have the spirit, and we have the soul. The thesis, the antithesis, the synthesis. So that's why this little pause point here was so important, because you can see the connection, that this goes back far, and it goes back into everything. And when you begin to realize that this union of conception, this union of ideas, it gives you connection to thought. It places you in a position where you can reach out and touch upon things because you have that particular lens, that particular perspective that now lets you see that these guys are simply rewriting what they've been told, what they learned, or what the universe or the world itself is speaking to them. So you can see the connection between yourself and some guy, another alchemist, 300 years ago, and recognize that there has been consistency, regardless of time, regardless of how the words have been spoken. When you understand the pattern, you have the connection. And when you have that connection, you have the thread of consciousness that leads you from where you are to where they are. And it opens up vaults of understanding. Vaults of understanding. All right, let's get back to the principle of polarity. But I really felt that it was important to recognize that all of it is part of the same thing, and that we stopped for a moment to talk about thesis and antithesis and the synthesis, and how that relates to the prima materia, the three primes of salt, sulfur, and mercury, and how that relates to ourselves as body, spirit, and mind. So there we are. It's all part of the same big picture. And now you've got another significant piece.